President, I take the floor in defense of one of our most successful environmental statutes. Since its nearly unanimous passage in 1973, the Endangered Species Act has protected nearly 2,000 species from extinction. The success has contributed significantly to the economic benefit of this nation. According to the study of the Fish and Wildlife in 2006, wildlife-related recreation, meaning hunting and fishing and wildlife watching, generated more than $122 billion in revenues in 2006. So this statute has protected wildlife diversity and has protected our economy. In my home state of Maryland, wildlife watching generated over $1 billion in revenue and sustained over 10,000 jobs. Now, Mr. President, in December of 2008, the Bush administration finalized two rules that undercut the success of the Endangered Species Act. Now, that's in December of 2008, after the elections, after Senator Obama was elected President of the United States. The Bush administration issued two regulations in an effort to undermine the Endangered Species Act. One rule undermines important safeguards for all threatened and endangered species. The other would withhold key protection from the polar bear. I believe it is critical that the safeguards that have worked to protect endangered species for decades be reinstated. Section 429 of the FY 2009 Omnibus Appropriation Act would give the Secretaries of Interior and Commerce the authority they need to do just that. It will allow the secretaries to reverse the Bush administration's midnight regulations and reinstate the regulations previously in place. To understand why this special authority is needed, I think it's helpful to understand how devastating the rule changes really are. So let me say a little bit about the two rules that that President Bush put in place. For decades, under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act, federal agencies have consulted with scientists at the Fish and Wildlife Service or the National Marine Fisheries Service to make sure that the agency's planned actions do not jeopardize or threaten endangered species. In a long line of records expressed, in a line with a long record that expressed a low regard for science, in December of 2008, the Bush administration finalized a rule that effectively eliminated the critical role scientists play in Section 7 system of checks and balances. What the Bush regulation did was to allow the federal agency to avoid consultation with the scientists in making its determination as to whether there was an impact on an endangered species. Professional scientists organizations argued, came out and said, quite frankly, that this is unacceptable. The agency does not have the capacity to make a determination as to whether a species is endangered by the action of the agency. They don't have the budget, they don't have the expertise, and quite frankly, they have a different mission. So the impact of this regulation could have devastating impact on the protection, legitimate protection of wildlife. Now, some of my colleagues argue that requiring consultation with independent scientists will slow infrastructure projects funded through the recently passed American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. But let me remind my colleagues that the projects that are ready to go have already gone through this environmental review. They're ready to go. They won't be delayed as a result of Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. We're ready to proceed. And as President Obama recently said, with smart, sustainable policies, we can grow our economy today and preserve the environment. But quite frankly, the changes with consultation rule were not the only regulation that was issued. We had the one that would compromise consultation with scientists and issuing the appropriate safeguards under the Endangered Species Act. The other was specifically aimed towards the polar bear. The new rule granted no new protections to the polar bear. Now, the President's regulation said differently, but that's not the case. The special rule not only denied additional protection normally provided under the Endangered Species Act, but it set a bad precedent for weakening ESA safeguards. The new rule does not require plans to monitor, minimize, or mitigate impact that could harm the bears. And the rule does not allow scientists and agencies to even consider climate change as a factor that could injure polar bears. Mr. President, last year I had the opportunity, along with members of the Environment and Public Works Committee, to visit Greenland. We saw firsthand what is happening in regards to the loss of the snow caps and the impact it is having on the polar bear population. Global climate change is clearly affecting the future stability of polar bears, and the regulation that was issued in December compromises that. There's no reason, it's quite clear why 73 editorials from newspapers in 32 states opposed the Bush administration's efforts. Dozens of wildlife, scientific, and environmental organizations oppose the change. In addition, 8 state attorney generals, including the Attorney General of Maryland, have filed suit to have these regulations withdrawn. So, we have an amendment that has been offered. The amendment would take out of the omnibus bill the additional authority that we want to give to the agencies so that they can reverse the midnight changes attempted by the Bush administration. I would urge my colleagues to reject that amendment. Let's not compromise the protections that we have in the Endangered Species Act that allows federal agencies to have the best information before they take action on their projects. It is what we should be doing. It does preserve the diversity of wildlife in this nation. It maintains the United States in the leadership on these types of issues. It's the right policies. We should go through regular order when we change it. The Bush administration did not do that. They did this as a last-minute gesture of the Bush administration. Let's restore the status quo, and then let's look at the normal regulation process for modifications that may be needed. I would urge my colleagues to reject the amendment offered that would undermine the Endangered Species Act. And with that, Mr. President, I would yield the floor.